Aloha everybody, this is Kai and you are watching Kai's Creatures. I am coming to you today from the comfort of my armchair because frankly it has been too hot to go out and do the adventures and stuff like I usually like to do. Basically 90 degrees Fahrenheit is like my limit. If it's any hotter than 90, I ain't going out. I'll do high 80s because I know, summertime is bug time and there's nothing you can do about that. Unfortunately, a lot of my favorite animals just love weather that I hate. But, that's the way nature designed them 430 million years ago, so nothing I can do about it. But you can find just as many bugs at 85 degrees as you can at 90 plus, so there's really no point in risking it. But I did want to start doing just more like indoor, species spotlight talks and, discussions on ecology and whatnot, indoor stuff. I want to start doing more of that anyway. So I guess now's an opportune time. So I guess before anything else, I guess I should just kind of talk about why I do what I do. Why did I become the bug guy? Where did that come from? And the funny thing is that that's a relatively recent thing for me. I didn't always like bugs. In fact, it hasn't been until 2015 or so that I liked any kind of bugs at all. I've always found them fascinating from an evolutionary perspective, so even when I didn't like them, I still knew a fair bit about them. But it wasn't until, I started keeping reptiles frequently that I got used to them. It started with dubia roaches because I hated crickets, and I still do. They bite, they stink, they jump around too much, they die too easy. The crickets are a pain. They really are. But yeah, I started getting into dubia roaches because I did my research on them and I was like, you know what, these creatures aren't so awful. Despite, being a roach, they're really pretty chill little dudes. They're not disgusting, in germy, and they're not gonna hurt you, and they're not very good at escaping. So I figured, yeah, I'll just get a colony of dubia roaches and I'll be able to keep up with feeding a bearded dragon. And so, yeah, from there, roaches were always, one of my big enemies as a kid. One of those things that just absolutely mortified me was just cockroaches crawling on the wall. Scared the ever-loving crap out of me. And, yeah, after keeping dubia roaches for a while, I was like, you know what? These creatures aren't so horrible. Of course, the American cockroach and the German cockroach are still not welcome in the home because they are very germy and disease-ridden and gross, but that's because of their dietary habits and, the things they do as specific species. Roaches are not terrible and horrible just because they're roaches. That's having, that, one, sleazy, drug-addled cousin and then just thinking the whole family is disgusting just because of that one dude. That's kind of unfair. But the major catalyst that made me start liking bugs and insects and arthropods and such actually just came in the last few years. Because the last couple of years for me have been a disaster of the highest proportion. I mean, financially, emotionally, mentally, it has been an absolute doo-doo show. And a lot of the bug thing came about because of mental health, believe it or not. I actually have clinical depression, which doesn't mean I'm sad all the time. I mean, look at me. Do I look like I'm sad all the time? But it does make me go through periods where I just kind of disassociate. I just completely run out of energy, and sometimes I can stare at a wall, and then it's suddenly 3 days later. Which makes taking care of things like, reptiles and mammals very difficult because they require a lot more regular care, and they're just, you have to be much more diligent, and diligence is not exactly my middle name. Okay, I have ADHD and depression and anxiety. I'm diagnosed with several things that makes it hard for me to pay attention sometimes. And I found that the only animals I had that were not burdening my mind terribly constantly, or suffering because I was just in disassociation mode again, the only animals I had that weren't causing an issue with that were the insects I was raising to feed the reptiles. Also, the reptiles kind of put me into debt and, feeding them the insects was like the least of my financial concerns. So it kind of dawned on me, maybe I should just do the bugs. There's a lot of interesting bugs out there. Maybe I could get into that. So my adventures in bug world kind of got started with millipedes. Reason for that being, they are fascinating to me from, like I said, like an evolutionary biology perspective. They are like the first animals to walk on land. Like, people talk about living fossils, like, the horseshoe crab and the coelacanth and things like that, but millipedes have been around forever too, just doing what they do. And we've been through, like, what, 4 or 5 major extinction events in the last 430 million years, and they're exactly the same as they were. They've changed over the years, but the general idea of a millipede has remained the same throughout all that time. So, I find them to be really fascinating creatures. And, yeah, just buying them, I'm just like, here's a pet that can live, like, up to a decade. And it eats dirt, and it only costs me, like, $10. Like, even a leopard gecko now, like, a decent quality one, not from Petco, is gonna cost you, like, $100. Like, and that's at the cheap end of reptiles. And yeah, so many bugs will do just fine in a, washed out plastic food container that you poked holes in. Like, insects and arthropods, for the most part, just ask so little of their keepers. And if I forget to feed my millipede for a few days, that's perfectly fine, because they're living in what they eat. Like with beetles, I can just plop a beetle jelly in there and leave it for a week, and they're good. They're Gucci. I don't have to worry about it from there. And I know mental health is kind of a hot topic these days, but in my case, it's true. Like, a lot of what I do has to do with mental health. Like, with the depression and with the disassociation I get sometimes, as much as I loved reptiles, I wasn't taking good care of them. Even though I tried, I would just, like, derp out for 3 days and just forget about them. Like, I just forget stuff. Out of sight, out of mind. That's how my brain works. And yeah, as much as I loved animals, I feel like I was not taking good care of them because my brain would just forget to. And it wasn't like I wanted to be that way. It's just, yeah, I forget about stuff. I don't have an addictive personality at all. I have a hard time getting addicted to things because I just stop feeling like doing stuff no matter how much I like it, and I just forget to do other stuff because I'm ADHD or whatever. So, yeah, having creatures like arthropods that can deal with me just not doing anything with them for a week it's a blessing for me. But yeah, another mental health related aspect as to why I got into this whole bug thing is because I have a lot of irrational fears. Like, I am just afraid of or hesitant to do a lot of things that hinder me as a person because I'm just afraid of stuff that's stupid that literally everybody has to deal with. So I thought it would be a healthy exercise for me to start conquering my fears. One of those fears was of bugs, which they're creatures I have always found fascinating, but I'm just scared of them for no good reason whatsoever. And so I figured that would be the first thing I worked on. And I saw a Facebook memory of me like 2 years ago. Well, this was about 2.5 years ago now. But yeah, of me saying, like, I'm going to conquer my fear of bugs. I'm going to stop being afraid of them. And obviously that worked out. But another thing that I've come to like about insect keeping, as it's more of a philosophical, emotional point, but I, in my life, have always been shunned by the general public. Like, I was always the weirdo, or the creep, or the freak, or whatever. And yeah, I got bullied about it. And, silly me, I thought that would stop when grade school ended, but no, that continued well into adulthood. Like, my managers and bosses just couldn't stand that I didn't do things the way everybody else did them. And that started to take a toll on me eventually. So I started thinking to myself, here are these wonderful, beautiful creatures that are essential to the ecosystem that are in no way as horrible and bad and ugly and nasty as anybody seems to think they are. Like, the majority of insects have literally done nothing wrong. They've done nothing to deserve the scorn that 95% of people give them. Like, it's really not fair. And thinking about that, I was like, you know what? I feel that on a spiritual level. Like, I know what it's like to be hated despite the fact that I only have good to offer this world. You know, I know what that's like. So, over time, I came to not only be okay with bugs, but to really actually like them and respect them, and eventually to really just kind of understand them on, you know, on a spiritual level. Like, it's become this whole emotional, philosophical thing for me, like, you know, to love the unloved, you know, to, like, respect the things that deserve respect in animals that nobody likes. Like, people don't like bugs. And it's fine, you don't have to like them, but you should respect them. You should not hate them. Like, if you're not a big fan and just the heebie-jeebies set in, okay, there's not necessarily anything you can do to stop that. Sometimes people just have phobias, and I get that. But honestly, the people almost feel like some sort of self-righteousness in hating insects. Like, it's, you know, they're afraid of bugs, and they're always going to be afraid of bugs, and, you know, bugs are horrible and nasty, and that's just not true. No matter how much evidence you give them that that's not true, some people are just, like, almost proud of the fact that they hate them. And I didn't want to be that guy. I don't want to be proud of hating things. Like, that's just not a good way to live. So, yeah, there was a lot more to me being a bug guy than just, you know, I like bugs. Like, it started out as a venture and just like, you know, I love animals in general. That's why it's Kai's Creatures and not Kai's Bugs. But, yeah, I love animals, and I like keeping animals. Like, they're kind of the light of my life. But I needed to keep animals that were not going to put me in bankruptcy, and would not suffer neglect if I just kind of entered a depressive state and disassociated for a while. Like, I needed animals that were not going to die because I didn't, you know, address them for a day or two. Like, and most bugs have done that for me. I can take care of them perfectly well, even with my mental health issues. But it became so much more than just, like, I need things that are cheap and easy. It became an exercise in tolerance and loving the unloved and embracing who I am. And I don't know, it became this whole spiritual journey for me, honestly. And now I'm kind of centering my life around it. So if you can address the irrationality of your fears and learn to conquer those fears, and learn to love and appreciate things like spiders and cockroaches and centipedes as much as I do, just imagine what that can teach you about love and tolerance towards your fellow person. I mean, people want to talk about respecting your elders. Well, maybe it's time we start respecting the creatures that have been here for 500 million years on this earth already, and will likely still be here when we're gone. I mean, how can we really claim to be loving and tolerant if we hate the most innocent, ancient, and essential creatures on this planet? Just food for thought. But if I get any more philosophical today, I'm gonna have to go put my toga on, so I think I'll cut it off here. So, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget, take care of the earth, take care of each other. Aloha. See you next time, guys.